This is Chaya with a poetic commentary on Parshat Pekudai. The title of this week's reading literally translates as Accountings, a title that makes sense given that this is the final parsha of the entire book of Exodus. This is the culmination of an epic journey through Egypt and into the desert, from Sinai to the golden calf, and now to this finale of the completion of the Mishkan. This is the end of an era, and an ending is always an apt time to look back over our narratives, to summarize and recount what's been. So what happens when we do accountings in our lives? What do we most often notice? The triumphs, of course, but admittedly also the failures. In fact, oftentimes we focus more on the failures and let the triumphs simply fade into the background. There's a term for this that I heard from Dennis Prager called the missing tile syndrome. Imagine you gaze up at an elaborately tiled ceiling, and in the midst of this beautiful spread of color and artistry, there's a gap, a tile missing. Our eyes are most often drawn to rest upon that one glaring absence. Never mind the myriad and magnificent tiles that are there. We are drawn to the single one that's not. It's an unfortunate fact of human observation to notice the break in a pattern, the presence of an absence. And though a ceiling tile may well be replaced, there are gaps in our lives that will never be filled. So what do we do with these missing pieces? We have a few choices. One, to gripe and groan or seep in shame over everything that we aren't. And another, perhaps more enlightened approach, to try our darndest to avoid the imperfection. And yet, avoidance, as helpful as it may be in the short term, in the long run, always proves untenable. Our repressed frustrations explode in our face, or we're run ragged by running from the truth. But we do have a third choice, an even more enlightened approach to our imperfections, and that's acceptance and appreciation. We have the choice to acknowledge and accept our lacks, and more than that, to appreciate them, for in truth, our lacks and mistakes are essential pieces of our process and who we are. As I read through these past 5 parshiot all about the people bringing their offerings to the Mishkan, I was amazed by the invisible process each person must have gone through in making their gifts. Because imagine the pressure to create something fitting for the dwelling place of God in the world. Imagine if you were presenting something to God, how many drafts would you go through in the process? The poem below is about the decomposition inherent in the compositions of our lives. It's about the drafts upon drafts that we undertake in our processes of creation. It's about the fires of failure through which we must all pass. For how many redrafts and reboots must be done before the final product is really ready to be presented? And how can we appreciate those trash drafts? For each mistake necessarily is part of the final product. After all, at the heart of the Mishkan stood the Ark of the Covenant. And what was in the heart of the Ark of the Covenant? The tablets of the 10 Commandments. But that was not all, for it also held within it the broken tablets, the God-inscribed stones that were shattered during the people's greatest failure. What a powerful and empowering biblical image of acceptance and appreciation for the entirety of who we are, the achievements and the flaws, where the broken is as beloved as the whole. For in the final accounting, both are essential to our journeys. This poem is called Composed. This my stitch, my pattern patched, this form my fracture, this scab my gash, this shred of structure my ruptured craft. 7 times I tied this lines, 6 times it cracked. A pomegranate placed here to cover up the stain, a gold stitch laced here to suture in the pain. When you look into this lamplight, do you sense its shade? When you read this poetry, hear the errors I have made? This ravaged piece of needlepoint, pocked with draped despair, too soiled with my soul to show, yet all I have to share. So, if this patch can't stumble past the guardians at the temple's door, then let God's throne lay decomposed, else what's an altar for? Let God's throne lay decomposed, else what's an altar for?